Hello there everybody and welcome back to another episode of An Ecologist Plays, the channel where I get to play games and ramble about nature. Now we are back here in Terra Nil where we are rehabilitating a very much degraded world, and we are going to carry on with the second map. And that is right here at the tropical area. So we've got a desolate island and we are going to have to restore the beach, mangrove, tropical forest and coral reef environment, and in the process hopefully find a home for 6 species over here. So let's jump right in. Now this map is looking very different from the previous one. We've got a lot of ocean all around this little island, which we didn't have previously, and the ocean is also polluted. Looking at what we need in order to get the thunderstorms to begin, we need 99% humidity and a 35 degrees Celsius or more temperatures. So we're going to eventually get to that, but for now we are just going to start as always with rehabilitating it by placing down our little wind turbine over here and then just removing some of the toxins in this area. And of course, now that we have done that, we can also start irrigating the land and get greenery to return once more. Alright, quite a bit of greenery there, but we can put in even more by just placing the water pump here and forming very nice little corridors. As the fresh water moves to the ocean, we of course have got the greenery, the riparian zone establishing all along here. Riparian zone basically just being vegetation, which is purely there because of the fact that there is a river or a water source along there. So a wetland, a river, all those types of aquatic environments will have a riparian zone. A zone which is really dependent on the aquatic environment being there, but also will have a major impact on the aquatic environment. Now we are just going to carry on here with our bioremediation. Our toxin scrubbers are doing its best. They are trying to remove all these toxins in the environment by most likely using things like bacteria that will take these toxins and neutralize them. We're going to place one more and that's going to unlock some kind of new building for us. We have now unlocked the mineralizer. Okay, we are going to have the ability to take salt ocean water and change that into rock. But for now, I'm just quickly going to continue detoxifying this landscape. Alright, now I have done as much as I possibly can, considering where our turbines are and where we have been able to detoxify and irrigate the land, and we now have to start doing the mineralizer. And we have now finally gotten these nice little environments like these, where the ocean is relatively clean, we don't have any toxins here. Now of course, with the ocean you'll have the movement of toxins back into these unpolluted areas. So just because it has been cleaned does not mean it will stay clean. In theory, there'll be a whole bunch of ocean currents moving past here, really messing up all your conservation efforts. But nonetheless, we are going to assume everything works hunky-dorily. And now we can also form a sandbank. Now the way this most likely works, it will take a whole bunch of sand from surrounding areas and actually plop it down over here. Now sand like this will very rarely actually remain like this. It will actually be washed away by currents very quickly. Nonetheless, we are going to say that okay, this works very nicely and we can use this to clean that piece of the ocean. So now that we have finally managed to clean a relatively large area, we are of course going to bring in the vegetation once more, and we'll start with that today and we'll move on with it next time. Now looking at what we need to establish, of course we need sandy beaches, and that is a very interesting habitat indeed. We need coral reefs, which are beautiful and under threat in the modern world. We've got tropical forests that we also need to establish, and then of course mangroves as well. A really useful and valuable vegetation type, but unfortunately also threatened by human interaction. So let's start with the hydroponium, where we can create a wetland. And if this wetland is close to the ocean, I do believe we will have a mangrove forest establishing. So let's have a quick look over here. Going to make this turn is into a wetland, and indeed we now have 16% of the mangroves that we need. Now this is a really amazing habitat. Now the mangroves are these trees growing all along here. They need salty water in order to actually grow. So they will be found here where the fresh water from the river meets the salty water from the ocean. Particularly not above the ocean, but anyway, they are typically estuarine plants. And we can establish, I think, another one, yeah, somewhere around here, where the river again flows into the ocean, and we have got a wetland forming and a whole band of mangroves also forming. Mangroves would be in the saltier environment, the more saline environment, and your reeds and bulrushes like these ones here, they will be associated with the fresher water. They don't do too well when the water gets too salty, but these mangroves, they are perfect for the salty environment. And we're just going to quickly try and establish as much of the mangrove forest as we possibly can. And they don't always have to be there where the river flows into the ocean. They can also just form these forests close to the ocean itself, usually in calm bays, but they need to be in very hot environments or warm temperatures. That's what they need. Here I am in the southern part of South Africa. Well, we do not have mangroves because temperatures in winter are just too cold and they can't germinate and survive under those colder conditions. And I see we have now changed the environment sufficiently for the mangroves to actually be really growing perfectly. So I think our humidity has gone up as we have put in more water bodies. The humidity in the environment has gone up, and the mangroves are in fact now flowering and fruiting. So what you can see here would be the fruits of, well, actually the whole plant, a new little plant growing on the mangrove. They are what we call viviparous. Now, normally the term viviparous is used to describe animals. Things like mammals are viviparous. Most mammals at least are viviparous. We give birth to live young, with the exception of the monotremes, the egg-laying mammals, the platypus and echidna from Australia, of course. But plants will technically be oviparous, where they have got eggs or seeds in the normal case. But these trees, the mangroves, are very often what we call viviparous, because the flower will be produced, it will form a seed, and while the seed is on the tree, it actually starts growing and germinating. That's what you see here, these little sausage things hanging here. Those are actually the roots of the new baby mangrove tree. And if it is high tide, and like it is at the moment here in the mangrove forest, and the seed drops into the water here, it floats and gets carried away by the ocean current, and out into the ocean it goes, and then it may establish in a different area. If, however, the tide is low and there is a sandbar exposed under these mangrove trees, when the seed drops, this hypocotyl, as it is called, the first major root of the mangrove, that will peg into the ground, and the little mangrove tree will start growing there where it is. I can't see any baby mangroves. I can see palms, but I can't see baby mangroves growing here. But technically, that one over there, that small thing there, may in fact be a little mangrove. Anyway, they are flowering now. It's perfect conditions for them, so great stuff. And there we go. Our mangroves are complete. We've got enough mangroves on the map here. Now, looking at our optional goals here on the right-hand side, there is one we can do now, which is to have moss growing on rock faces. And in order to do that, we just need humidity of more than 50%, while the temperature is still under 10 degrees. Mosses tend to perhaps scorch a little bit more than one would hope, although I have seen them growing in very, very dry environments as well. Nonetheless, we are going to do some cloud seeding, and voila, we've got ferns on the riverbanks growing all over here now, and we should have some moss growing on rock faces. And I think that'll be the moss over there, although those aren't mosses. I think those are actually more ivies growing all along there, but nonetheless, it works. Now, our next step is to actually let the world burn, because in order to unlock the next thing, which I think is the lithium, we need to place 3 combustors, and the combustors are going to take vegetation and burn it, and use that to increase the temperature of this environment, of this world. And we don't have any other optional goals that depend on cooler conditions, so we are going to burn. There's a combustor, it has a spark that starts and it burns a little area over there. We can again burn this area over here. So burning all the grasslands, not the wetlands it seems. Though in theory the wetlands would also potentially burn. I mean, a fire spreading from the meadows over here can easily go into the bulrushes here, and if the vegetation is dry enough, it can spread from there. Nonetheless, okay, we've got crabs populating beaches and migratory birds returning. So we'll see flocks of birds coming into the environment quite soon. And once we have beaches, we should also see some crabs establishing. Now let's see, we can now build the Litarium. Sorry, not Litharium, Litarium. And we are going to create beaches and form beaches by capturing sand. And we must build it over here. Okay, on the toxin scrubber. Okay, I have just cleaned this area, which means we should be able to place the Litarium nicely over here. Oh, we've got ideal conditions for the meadows, which means they will start flowering as well. Ah, that's great. Okay, nonetheless, we are creating a nice little sandy beach over here. All along this shore, we are now creating little sandy environments. Now, sandy beaches like these will be found in areas where the ocean currents are depositing sand onto the beach, rather than eroding it. In many of South Africa's beaches, for example, they will have what we call a half-heart bay, which is an area where there's sand being eroded and another area where there is sand being deposited. So we'll have this alternating sequence of erosion and deposition of sand along South Africa's shore. And to some extent we can see it kind of here. It also looks kind of like a half a heart, where in this area ocean currents are a little bit stronger and actually erode the sand from the beach. And then over here on this side it's a little bit weaker and actually deposits the sand onto the beach, forming the nice sandy beach. And you've got the sequence of erosive, depositional, erosive, depositional. Technically should be some erosive here and depositional again. But anyway, slow movement of water over here deposits a whole sandy beach environment. And as we have ideal conditions for them, we also have a whole bunch of little crabs that have moved into this system as well. Jumped into the sand there. Now, of course, these crabs would have burrows underground because those burrows allow them to hide from predators while also avoiding desiccation. It is a harsh environment. This is like a desert next to the ocean. So it's really, really hot, and animals like the crabs here need some kind of adaptation to survive. And they survive by having burrows, and they can just, if it gets too hot, they can retreat into those burrows, and those burrows very often will extend down to the water table as well. And then whenever they get too desiccated, they can just go down into the burrow and get some extra water. Now we have almost got enough sandy beaches here. Just going to place a little bit more, and there we go. We now have enough sandy beaches. Brilliant. Now we can technically place salinators as well, which will change the wetlands, the freshwater wetlands, into more of a mangrove forest. So let's actually do that right over here. We can take this wetland, make it more salty, and because we are making it more salty, we are creating a perfect environment for mangroves to also grow. That's quite nice, I think. We are just going to quickly put in some more cloud cedars here. We now have ivy overgrowth and water lilies also blossoming. Oh, brilliant. I think the ivy overgrowth, yeah, you can see the ivy growing on the buildings here. Now, technically, you don't really want that growing on your buildings. They will degrade your buildings in real life. Nonetheless, in the game here, it is nice to see it. Now, we have placed a lot of the cloud cedars, and as a result, we can now also create shade cloth, or place shade cloth all over this place, and we'll do that to bring in rainforests. And I think that is what we are going to be doing next time. So today we have managed to bring in the mangrove forests. They are extremely useful biomes. They will buffer the rest of the island against tsunamis and major storms, waves, those types of things. Because if you have a bunch of waves coming into an unprotected area like this section of the beach over here, the waves will bring all their force to bear on the land environment. But if you have a mangrove forest like we have over here, as the wave or the tsunami comes rushing through these trees, they hold fast and reduces the velocity and therefore the impact of those waves and the tsunamis, and by the time it reaches the land environment behind the mangrove barrier, it will have less of an impact. It will not be as destructive. So mangrove forests, really extremely useful environment. And next time I'll be talking about why on earth they also have these weird roots propping up all over the place. So for now though, thank you very much everyone for joining me on our little adventure over here. Of course, this Friday I'll be back in Australia with another episode of theHunter Call of the Wild, the Emerald Coast DLC. And then on Sunday, Nick and I will be streaming again. We'll be streaming grounded once more. So until next time, everybody, thank you for tuning in. Stay safe. And I will see you all soon. Bye.